1, chapter 1, verse 7 to 10. Now we prepare to listen to a homily from the Holy Father as he speaks to bishops, priests, deacons, consecrated persons, seminarians, and pastoral workers of the church in Portugal. But also, of course, the homily is addressed to us naturally.
Queridos hermanos obispos,
Dear priests and dear deacons, consecrated women and men, seminarians, dear pastoral workers, dear brothers and sisters, good evening. I'm pleased to be with you, not only to experience World Youth Day together with so many young people, but also to share in your own ecclesiastic journey your challenges and your hopes. I thank Bishop Jose Onales Cavallo for his kind words. This evening, I would like to join you in prayer so that, as the bishop said, along with the young people, we can boldly embrace the dream of God and blaze trails towards a joyful, generous, and transforming participation for the church and for humanity. I find myself immersed in the beauty of your country, a land of passage between past and future, a place of ancient and traditions, of great changes, embellished by verdant valleys and golden beaches that face the boundless beauty of the ocean that borders Portugal. This makes me think of the first calling of the disciples, whom Jesus called on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. I would like to dwell on that call, which reminds us that what we heard in the brief reading of these Vespers, the Lord has saved us and has called us, not according to our works, but according to His grace. This was the case in the lives of those first disciples when Jesus, as he passed by, saw two boats there at the shore of the lake. The fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. Jesus then got into Simon's boat and, after teaching the crowds, changed the life of those fishermen by inviting them to put out into the deep water and let down their nets. He immediately noted the contrast. The fishermen leave the boats to wash their nets, that is, to clean and repair them, and then return home, whereas Jesus gets into the boat and invites them to lay down their nets for a catch. We see the difference. The disciples get out of the boat while Jesus gets into the boat. They want to put away their nets while he wants them to lower them once more into the sea for a catch. To start, the fishermen are getting out of the boats to wash their nets. Jesus sees this and stops. Shortly before he had inaugurated his preaching in the synagogues of Nazareth, but his countrymen had chased him out of the city and even sought to kill him. He then left the sacred precincts and began to preach the word among the people on the streets where the men and women of his time lived and worked each day. Christ wanted to bring God's closeness into the very places and situations in which people live, work, and hope, sometimes clinging to their past failures and their shortcomings, precisely like those fishermen who labored throughout the night and caught nothing. Jesus looks sympathetically upon Simon and is
Jesús mira con ternura a Simón
Jesus looks at his sympathetic upon Simon and his companions who are tired and disappointed and were washing their nets as usual, resigned to the fact that they will return home empty-handed. There are moments in our ecclesial journey when we can feel a similar weariness. When we seem to be holding on to empty nets. This is not uncommon in countries of ancient Christian traditions, buffeted by social and cultural changes and increasingly marked by secularism, indifference to God, and growing detachment from the practice of the faith. It is often accentuated by the disappointment and anger with which some of the people view the church at times due to our poor witness and the scandals that have marred her faith and call us to a humble and ongoing purification, starting with the anguish cry of the victims, we must always be accepted and listened to. Whenever we feel discouraged, when we feel discouraged, we can feel tempted to leave the boat and become entangled in the nets of resignation and pessimism. Indeed, we need to bring those struggles and tears to the Lord in order then to respond to pastoral and spiritual needs. Together with open hearts and finding new ways to follow Him.
Consciente o no del todo consciente, nos jubilamos. Nos jubilamos del celo apostólico y lo vamos perdiendo y nos transformamos en funcionarios de lo sagrado. Y es muy triste cuando una persona que ha consagrado su vida a Dios se transforma en funcionario.
Unfortunately, the Holy Father is speaking there in Spanish and just saying how sad it is when a pastoral worker becomes a functionary. When we feel discouraged, we feel like leaving the boat and become entangled in the nets of resignation.
Con la ilusión del primer tiempo, esa ilusión que debe ser revivida, reconquistada.
We need to reconquer our faith and invite Jesus back into the boat.
Él viene a buscarnos en nuestras soledades, en nuestras crisis, para ayudarnos a recomenzar. La espiritualidad del recomienzo. No le tengan miedo.
We need a spirituality of starting again, starting anew always. Always be ready to start again.
Recibir esa mano de Jesús. También hoy pasa por las orillas de la existencia para reavivar la esperanza y decirnos también a nosotros, como a Simón y a los otros, navega mar adentro, echen las redes. Y cuando se pierde la ilusión, nos salen 1000 justificativos para no echar las redes. Pero sobre todo esa resignación amarga.
And obviously there the Holy Father speaking against the resignation, being resigned to fate.
Hermanos, hermanas,
Brothers and sisters, we are surely living in difficult times, but the Lord is asking the church, do you want to leave the boat and plunge into disillusion, or will you let me enter and allow the newness of me, of my words, once more to take the helm? Do you want only to preserve the past which lies behind you, or do you want once again to lower the nets with enthusiasm to catch? That is what the Lord is asking us, to revive our restless enthusiasm for the spread of the gospel. The restlessness is a good thing. It is what the immensity of the ocean holds out to you.
Cuando uno se va acostumbrado y se va aburriendo y la misión se transforma en una especie de empleo, es el momento de dejar lugar a esa segunda llamada de Jesús.
The Pope is speaking about our second calling from Jesus. Listen, our second calling.
No le tengan miedo a esa segunda llamada de Jesús. No es ilusión, es Él que vuelve a golpear la puerta. Y podemos decir que esta es la inquietud buena cuando nos dejamos seducir.
That restless is a good thing. It is what the immensity of the ocean holds out to you.
Esa es la inquietud buena que la inmensidad del océano les entrega a ustedes, portugueses.
Dear Portuguese friends, an eagerness to set out from the shore, not to conquer the world, but to make it exult in the comforting joy of the gospel. Here we can think of the words of one of your great missionaries, Father Antonio Vieira, who was known as Payasu, great father. He once said that God gave you a small land for your birth, but making you gaze at the ocean, He gave you an entire world for which to die. To be born, a small land. To die, the whole world. To be born in Portugal, to die, the whole world.
Así decía el Padre. Echar de nuevo las redes y abrazar al mundo con la esperanza del
To lower the nets anew and to embrace the whole world with the hope brought by the gospel. That is what we are called to do. This is not temple to stop and give up, to drag the boat to shore or to look back. We must not take flight from the present out of fear or take refuge in forms and practices of the past. Now is God's given time of grace to sail boldly into the sea of evangelization and of mission. To do this, however, we need to make certain choices. I would like to indicate 3, which are inspired by the gospel. First, to put into the deep. Put into the deep. In order to lower their nets anew, we must set out and leave behind the shores of our disappointments and our inertia, to leave behind the faint melancholy and the cynicism and the irony that can beset in the face of difficulties. This has to be done if we are to pass from the defeatism to faith.
Recuperar la ilusión, pero en una segunda edición de la ilusión ya madura, la ilusión que viene de fracaso o de aburrimiento. No es fácil recuperar la edición.
We need to go beyond our disappointments, says the Holy Father.
Para pasar del derrotismo a la fe, como Simón, que aún habiendo trabajado.
This has to be done if we are to pass from defeatism to faith, like Simon, who, even after struggling vainly all night, was able to say, "At your word, I will let down the nets."
quisiera aquí hacer una pregunta, pero cada uno se la responde adentro. ¿Cómo rezo yo? ¿Como un loro, bla, 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 bla? ¿O durmiendo la siesta delante del sagrario? Porque no sé cómo hablar con el Señor.
We need to learn how to speak to the Lord from the heart.
Solo en la adoración, solo ante el Señor se recupera.
Only in adoration, only in the presence of the Lord do we truly rediscover our taste and passion for evangelization. We have lost.
Todos, sacerdotes, obispos, consagradas, consagrados, laicos, tienen que recuperar.
We need to rediscover the importance of adoration, the importance of staying in silence in the presence of the Lord.
En tantas cosas de la vida, nunca dejó la adoración. Aún en los momentos en que su fe tambaleaba y se preguntaba si era todo verdad o no. Momento de la oscuridad, que también lo pasó Teresita.
These are difficult moments, and the Holy Father citing Mother Teresa and how she would spend many hours in France of adoration. Only then can we overcome the temptation to offer a ministry of nostalgia and regrets and find the courage to put things into the deep.
¿Cuántas veces nuestras impotencias, nuestra
The Holy Father speaking about a religious nurse who was called Sister Lamentation.
Y dejando esas lamentelas, se toma otra vez la fuerza para navegar mar adentro, sin ideologías.
Without ideologies or forms of worldliness, impelled.
Y de la cual se engendra el clericalismo. Clericalismo no solo de los curas. Los laicos clericalizados son peor que los curas.
The Holy Father, as he has done in the past, speaking up against clericalism, and not only, as also lay people who can also participate in clericalism.
Es uno de los males más graves que puede suceder a la Iglesia. Superar esas dificultades sin ideologías, sin mundanidad.
So without ideologies or forms of worldliness, impelled by a single desire that the gospel be preached to all people. Along this path, you yourselves have had many examples. Seeing that we are surrounded by many young people, I would like to mention a young person from Lisbon, St. John Brito, who centuries ago, amid great hardship, set out to India and began to speak and dress the same way as the people of the place he went, in order to tell them about Jesus. We are called to lower our nets these days and to dialogue with everyone, proposing the gospel message, even if it involves risking a few storms. Like the young people who come here from all over the world to take into the giant waves of Nazareth, we too must set out fearlessly. Indeed, we need never fear the open seas, for in the midst of storms and battling oncoming winds, Jesus comes to meet us and says, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid."
Cada uno se contesta dentro. Y si no la hemos tenido es porque algo falló durante la tormenta. Una segunda decisión.
A second choice, to work together in offering pastoral care. In the Gospel, Jesus gives Peter the task of putting out into the deep, but then speaking in the plural, tells the others, "Let down your nets." Peter guides the boat, but others are on board, and all of them are called to lower their nets. And when they take in a great catch of fish, they do not try to go it alone or treat the boon as their private possession and property, as the Gospel tells us, they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them.
Uno significa soledad, cerrazón, pretensión de autosuficiencia.
In this way, they filled two boats, not one boat. The church is synodal. She is communion, mutual assistance, and shared journey. That is the aim of the current synod, which will have its first General Assembly in October. In the boat of the church, there has to be room for everyone. All the baptized are called on board to lower their nets, becoming personally involved in the preaching of the gospel. This is a great challenge, especially in those situations.
Perspectivas apostólicas, aquel paso del Evangelio en que no van a la fiesta de bodas del Hijo y está todo preparado. ¿Y qué dice el Señor de la fiesta, que dice: vayan a los confines y traigan a todos, sanos, enfermos, chicos y grandes, buenos y pecadores, todos. Que la iglesia no sea una aduana para seleccionar quienes entran, no, todos.
The Holy Father speaking there about the importance of the church welcoming everybody, all sinners, not only the perfect, everyone.
Pongamos aduanas a la iglesia, todos. Y es un gran desafío, especialmente en los contextos en que los sacerdotes y los consagrados.
This is a great challenge, especially in those situations where priests and consecrated persons are hard-pressed, since their numbers are fewer and pastoral demands ever great. Even so, we can look at this as an opportunity for inviting, with fraternal enthusiasm and sound pastoral creativity, the lay faithful. The nets of the first disciples can thus serve as an image of the church, which is a network of relationships, human, spiritual, and pastoral. When dialogue, co-responsibility, and participation are lacking, the church grows old.
Coordinadores de grupos de iglesia. Y la iglesia envejece.
When these are lacking, the church grows old.
Jamás un sacerdote sin sus compañeros, y todos unidos como iglesia, sacerdotes, religiosas, religiosos y fieles.
I would put it this way: never a bishop without his priests and the people of God, never a priest without his brothers and sisters, and all of us together as church, priests, consecrated men and women, and the lay faithful, never without others or without the world.
En la iglesia nos ayudamos, nos sostenemos mutuamente.
Without worldliness, to be sure, yet without the world. In the church, we help each other, we support one another, and we feel ourselves called to spread a climate of constructive fraternity beyond our walls. For this matter, St. Peter tells us that we are living stories being built in a spiritual house. I would like to add that the faithful of Portugal are also calçada. You are the precious stones of that friendly and resplendent pavement on which the gospel needs to walk. Not even one stone can be lacking, otherwise it is absence and immediate noted. This is the church, with the help of God, we are called to. Lastly, a third choice: to become fishers of men.
Eso no es hacer proselitismo, es anunciar el evangelio que provoca. En esta imagen tan linda de Jesús, ser pescadores de hombres. Jesús confía a los discípulos.
Jesus entrusts his disciples with the mission of putting out into the sea of the world. In the scripture, the sea is often seen as the haunt of evil and adverse powers that human beings are incapable of controlling. So to be to be catchers of men and women and to draw them out of the water means to help them return to the place from which they have fallen, to save them from the evil that threatens to overwhelm them, to revive them from every form of death.
Y una de las señales de algunos movimientos eclesiales que están andando mal es el proselitismo.
The Holy Fathers
Un movimiento eclesial,
speaking
diócesis, un obispo, un cura,
about the importance
una
of
monja,
conversion, not
hace
proselytism.
proselitismo, eso no es cristiano. Cristiano es invitar, acoger, ayudar. Pero
Christianism is to invite and to help and not to
el
proselytize.
Evangelio,
The gospel
en efecto, es un anuncio de vida
is
en
a
el mar de
proclamation of life amid the abyss of death, of freedom, amid the eddies of enslavement, of light in the depth of darkness. In the words of St. Ambrose, the means to be used in apostolic fishing are like nets. For nets do not kill the catch, but they keep it alive. They drag it from the depths into the light. There's so much darkness in today's society, also here in Portugal. We seem to have lost a sense of enthusiasm, the courage of dreams, the strength to confront challenges and to be confident about the future. And so we sail amidst doubts and economic uncertainty and impoverishment of social friendships and lack of hope. As church, we are entrusted with the task of putting out into the waters of this sea and casting the nets of the gospel, not pointing fingers, but bringing to the men and women of our time an offer of new life, the life of Jesus. We are called to bring the openness of the gospel to a multicultural society, to bring the closeness of the Father to situations of growing uncertainty and poverty, especially among young people, to bring the love of Christ where families are fragile and relationships are wounded, to transmit the joy of the Spirit where discouragement and fatalism reign. As one of your authors has written, to arrive at the infinite, I do not believe that one can arrive there. We need a secure port, just one. I do believe that one can arrive there. We need a secure port, just one, from which to set out towards the indefinite. Let us dream of a church in Portugal as a secure port of all those who face the straits, the shipwrecks, and the tempests of life. I thank you, brothers and sisters, most cordially, the laity, the religious, priests, bishops, all of you.
Echen las redes. No vivan acusando esto es pecado, hasta aquí no es pecado. Vengan todos, después hablamos. Pero que sientan primero la invitación de Jesús. Y después viene el arrepentimiento. Después viene esa cercanía de Jesús. Por favor, no conviertan la iglesia en una aduana. Acá se entra los justos, los que están bien.
Let us not transform the church into a border where only the righteous can enter. The good, the sinners, everyone should be able to enter into God's church. I thank you.
Les agradezco todo lo que hacen, el ejemplo, sobre todo el ejemplo escondido y la constancia. Ese levantarse todos los días.
I think especially of St. Anthony, tireless apostle, the Holy Father ending there with a reminder of the famous Portuguese saint, St. Anthony, tireless apostle, who was an inspired preacher and faithful disciple of the gospel.
A la custodia del Ángel de Portugal y la protección de sus grandes santos, especialmente aquí en Lisboa, de San Antonio, apóstol incansable, que se lo roban los de Padua.
the apostles and apostle. The Holy Father, they are drawing a smile by referring to Saint Anthony of Padua, who was actually Portuguese, who was an inspired preacher and faithful disciple of the gospel, attentive to the ills of society and filled with compassion for the poor. May he intercede for you and grant you joy of a new and miraculous catch of fish. And I ask you, please, not to forget to pray for me. Holy Father, Pope Francis giving his homily at this evening prayer gathering of bishops, priests, the religious, men, women, seminarians, and various pastoral agents of Portugal. Reminding the pastoral agents here, in fact, never that we need to bring our struggles and tears to the Lord, confident that the Lord Jesus is ever ready to hold us. And as usual, the Holy Father inviting everyone to make sure that the church is open for all.